Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Europa de Viva. I'd like to make a few comments on the NATO summit taking place in Ankara these days, and to make some observations regarding how various NATO countries fulfill their so-called obligations. So I will take the examples of two countries at the extremes of this spectrum of compliance with respect to daddy's wishes. One is Romania, which is the good kid of the class. Romania is the country that not only fulfills but also exceeds its obligations. It perceives them as obligations. It perceives them as some sort of trust obligations. So in order to instill trust in the partners, the so-called partners, Romania needs to do all sorts of government procurement programs in favor of the military-industrial complex of the United States. And not only, all sorts of other perks to other corporations. So to loot the state coffers on behalf of the US corporate system. And on the other extreme is Spain. So Spain is a rather naughty country. It has been singled out at this NATO summit, just like it has been singled out by the United States in the past couple of years because of its lack of support for Israel and for Israel's bombardments all across the Middle East and Israel's genocide and so on. So Spain, out of all the NATO countries, has been the most adamant in opposing this agenda of control by the United States. And for some reason, Spanish politicians think that they need to prioritize the welfare of their citizens rather than an illusory Russian threat. Of course, there is NATO propaganda also here in Spain, and I wouldn't say it's very effective. Probably Israeli propaganda is more effective than NATO propaganda because Israeli propaganda sponsors this party Vox that tries to pin all the wrongdoings in Spanish society on the migrants and especially on the Muslim ones, whereas the Russian threat has no object. So if Israel can manage to persuade a part of the Spanish population that Islam is a danger and so to fraternize with Israel, who is genociding Muslims in the Middle East, NATO and the Americans are having a very hard time convincing the Spaniards that they need to sacrifice their well-being for defeating an illusory invasion of Russia that would go all the way to the Pyrenees and cross them. So if the Germans have some historical memory of such an invasion, if the French have a similar historical memory of such an invasion, even though both were just responses of France and Germany's attempts to conquer Russia, so they led these coalitions of the willing of the 18th and 19th centuries, the 19th and 20th centuries, in trying to conquer Russia, and in the end their capitals were conquered by Russia. But Spain has no experience with this, and it would be a very hard sell, even though the NATO propaganda networks are trying hard to do that. But it's very hard. Spanish people love their lifestyle, they love their culture, their social safety nets, so they would not want to sacrifice their social programs because some politicians want to cozy up with the Americans and want to get some kickbacks from American procurement contracts. But Romania not only is doing that, but as I've pointed out in various previous episodes, Romania is actually sacrificing its statehood. So it is not in the representation of the world that the Romanian elites have that national interest exists. So what they understand by national interest is just this idea that they need to receive praise from some prestigious foreigners. They believe that if they receive praise from the United States, from Israel, from Ukraine, then this is essentially an acknowledgement of their work, an acknowledgement of their public service. And however much they might sacrifice their own citizenry is completely beside the point. They are not in any way inclined to cater to the needs of their own population, but they function rather in the mentality of the orphans of the 1990s. So even though I'm pained to admit it, because they are the colleagues of my generation, they are former classmates, they are people that I went to university with, they're former childhood friends, they are people I worked for, people I worked with. Even though essentially my people came to power, I could not have expected it to be such a fiasco, and for them to, even though they are theoretically highly educated, for them to have the mentality of some abandoned children from the orphanages from hell of 1990s Romania. So the best thing that they could hope for is to be loved by some foreigners, to be adopted by a friendly gay couple from Belgium. It's like this is their number one priority. That some prestigious foreigners from Brussels would come, either from the NATO headquarters or from the European Union headquarters, and to just pat them on the head, and maybe in some other places, and to praise them and to tell them that they're doing a very good job. It's like they have the mentality of unloved children. This is the easiest way to put it. Ever since 2020, I started pointing out various things to them in confidence because, well, I knew them, they knew me, they had a good impression of me. I was trying to explain to them that the world is not exactly as CNN puts it, and just watching CNN does not make you informed, and there are all sorts of things which go beyond the public discourse of the Western mainstream media and which are nevertheless true. And their reaction was, essentially that of children. They considered that I was a bad person by no longer believing in what I used to believe, and in helping them tear up their illusion. But to no avail. So in the end, they went on to take high office in the Romanian state, and they are playing this. It's not a game. It's for them. It's very much real. They believe that politics means catering for the interest of these sources of prestige, these external sources of prestige, and the better they cater for them, the more virtuous they are. They don't even see it as corruption. They don't even see it as somehow betrayal, treason. No, they see it as fulfilling their duty, their moral duty. The moral duty is to satisfy the needs of daddy, as Rutte likes to call the US president. So if daddy wants something from us, we should satisfy daddy, because even though he's not our biological daddy, he might take care of us. So exactly the mentality of abandoned children in orphanages that have this trauma of abandonment and that need to somehow receive confirmation and receive affection from foreigners in order to appreciate themselves as people. This is the mentality of the ruling elite of Romania nowadays. And why am I saying that they are destroying statehood? Well, I mean, you might think this is an exaggeration because, sure, they are plundering the public coffers, they are creating enormous amounts of debt in order to satisfy all the needs, all the requests from daddy and from daddy's circle of corporate interests. But they're doing much more, because they're not even aware of what they're doing. They're not even aware of the fact that they are sacrificing the public interest. They are willing to go very far. They're willing to go extremely far. They're going to go to the end, because for them, not knowing that what they are doing is bad is something that makes them unable to stop. If they understood that they are sacrificing the Romanian people and the Romanian state and the Romanian interests, they might have a tendency to stop at some point. They might see some point as too much. They might have a stop loss at some moment. But this is not the case. They believe that the more they sacrifice Romania for all sorts of illusory things like securing the Black Sea or securing the eastern flank or whatever, they believe they're doing their job excellently. So for them, there are no incentives to stop. Just like during the pandemic, there was this alleged epidemiologist who said that if the pandemic measures hurt the population, it means that they're working. So pain is a sign of efficacy, of the drug's efficacy. It's the intended effect rather than just a side effect. It's the same with these people. They believe that the more they sacrifice Romania, the more they align Romania with the interests of the countries that they are told to serve, and the more they essentially make the Romanians commit suicide for those interests, the better job that they are doing, and they believe that they will be rewarded at some point with some high-ranking positions in NATO or in the European Commission and so on. So basically, they're like trial auditioning in the Romanian public service for more prestigious jobs abroad in these institutions that are controlled by the international financial capital and that function in the interest of the Western elite. And this is why sacrificing Romania in a way like putting it under the command of Ukraine, for Ukraine to seize its resources and most of all its human resources in order to prop up its war with Russia, seems for them a very good idea. There's nothing that would stop them. For them, it would be win-win-win-win-win all across the board, because all of their Western sponsors would be in line with it. They would see this as a great way to fix the Ukrainian problem, which is one of manpower, first and foremost. And there would be little to no resistance from the Romanian population. So the Romanian population had a very good chance to not vote in office a candidate who promised exactly this, who promised involvement in the Ukraine war. And they failed in that possible objective that they should have had. So there is little chance that the Romanian population would at some point realize what's happening and would at some point object. The Romanians are still beholden to this elite discourse, to this prestige discourse. If something is touted as being Western, they go for it. So I can imagine that a couple of years down the road, there will be this proposal from the West, so from NATO or from the European Union, to somehow formalize the Odessa Triangle and to put these countries into a sort of federation. And whoever opposes it is a disinformer, is a Putin puppet, and so on. It's the whole routine that has been enacted for a few years now. And I don't see how this will be objected. Of course, the same people who opposed the vaccine mandates and who opposed the austerity measures and who opposed Romania's entry into the war will oppose this as well. And they're the usual suspects that who will be called conspiracy theorists, even though this would be an announced plan. Calling it out for what it is would be labeled a conspiracy theory. It will be labeled pro-Russian propaganda, saying that this is bad and so on. So I'm looking forward to the formalization of the Odessa Triangle into a confederation, and then calling out of the Romanian men to the conscription centers by telling them that their fatherland is under attack. Odessa, the triangle, is under siege from Putin, so they need to defend their motherland. They need to go out and enlist and sign up for service and go and fill the ranks on the front lines. For me, it's quite obvious that at some point, either through a false flag attack or through some sort of other incident, manufactured incident, or just through this further integration at the behest of NATO and the EU, Romania will at some point come under the command of Ukraine. the cards are stacked in such a way that the Ukrainian army has the most experience in combat right now, and they would need resources. They get money, they get weapons, but they do not have the manpower. And so Ukraine, if we make a biological analogy, Ukraine is this life form that's very aggressive, and that requires a lot of resources for the kind of things that it does. Requires a lot of energy, and next to it is this blob, is this life form that has a lot of protein in it, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of fat, but it has no brain. So it's essentially this blob that's very nutritious, and that has little to no protective membrane. Its antibodies, its immune system has already been hijacked to function to the benefit of the parasite and of the attacker. And so it has zero defense towards being encroached upon and being consumed by this aggressive neighbor. And this would not be done in an aggressive fashion. This would be done in just through further integration. This is the danger that being the best kid in class brings with it. The Romanian elites have this somehow reflex from the school years that if they listen to the headmaster and if they are the best pupils, if they do their homework to the best extent, then they will be rewarded. So they still function with this incentive system. It's just that now they should be adults, which they're not, and the headmaster is Donald Trump. And the other important teachers whose needs they need to satisfy are Ursula von der Leyen, Mark Rutte, and so on. So when these people, these teachers give them assignments, just like good pupils, they have the reflex to just do them and not question them. And this is the way in which they can be herded, they can be goaded, they can be very easily nudged into all sorts of positions that might be unthinkable if they would be done from scratch. It's like boiling the proverbial frog in the pot slowly so that it doesn't jump out. Romanian public officials and the Romanian elite in general would not object to some salami slice tactic of further integrating it with its eastern neighbors in this Odessa Triangle, under the auspices of this Odessa Triangle. Romania would think of it as something prestigious, would think of it as something that makes it safer. The discourse would be that we are aiding the defense of the triangle, and the defense of the triangle is our defense, and so on. And I'm pretty sure that this would also be a convenient way of getting out of the responsibility for the economic crisis that these elites have bestowed onto the Romanian people. It's a very convenient way of supplanting a crisis with another one, so that Romania can also become this country that relies on foreign aid instead of relying on predatory loans with predatory interest rates. It can just start relying on alms, just like Ukraine. It can put a begging bowl in front of it, and it would ask the generous foreigners to donate, saying that it is for a good cause. So claiming that Romania is the defender of the West, just like Ukraine does now, claiming that it is defending civilization from the barbarians and so on. So I'm pretty sure the Romanian elites would be tempted by this scenario, and given that they have zero openness to hearing other viewpoints, and they believe the narratives that they hear in Western media, and they fail to see the contradictions, I'm pretty sure they will fall for this, and until the end of the century, Romania will no longer exist. So this is what I wanted to tell you today. If you like what I do, like, share, subscribe, and you can join my Telegram channel to see some more updates from other creators that I watch. Until next time, take care. Bye.